He's a man.
Sanders had carried 11 times before that for 22 yards. And then that
Only 11 for 22 yards to this point, but this run is iconic. Absorb the blow.
You think you got him tackled? I mean,
Watch 51 just go down.
Sanders move. Some of those moves are only one
Iconic.
guy in this game that makes, and you just saw that guy.
What's happening, sports fans? Thank you for returning for another video. I am your host, Johnny Gaz. Today, I have a monumental topic for you. As we get a little bit closer to the NFL Draft 2024 in Detroit, I thought, what a great time for a fantastic topic. The Detroit Lions are as close as they have ever been to a Super Bowl. I believe this organization has done everything possible to put themselves in a position to actually get this thing done. The last time that Lions fans thought that this may be a reality was back in 1992. That team was coming off an historic season in 1991, however, a devastating loss in the NFC Championship game to the eventual Super Bowl champion, Washington Redskins. There was a ton of reason to believe that that team was on the right path and could potentially win the organization's first Super Bowl. We know that that didn't happen, and the Lions organization has suffered really since that point on, but there's a lot of optimism as we enter the 2024 season. Today, I'm going to compare the 1992 Detroit Lions to the 2024 Detroit Lions. Ultimately, I'm going to answer two key questions. Why the Lions didn't do what they needed to do in 1992, and why the Lions will soar in 2024. Let's get into today's topic. Before we go any farther, make sure to hit that like button if you're digging the vibe here at Johnny Gaz Sports. Hit the subscribe and notify bell so you don't miss any future videos here on the channel. We're going to have a lot of fun stuff coming up. I so much appreciate your support. Let's talk about today's topic. There are so many similarities between these two teams. The 1992 Detroit Lions finished 12-4, won a home playoff game, made it to the NFC Championship game, ultimately losing to the eventual Super Bowl champion Washington Redskins. So much optimism leaving that season as they head into the 1992 season. So many reasons to believe that that team may be the first Lions team to get to and win a Super Bowl. The 2024 Lions, a very similar situation, coming off a 12-win season, home playoff wins back-to-back, also made the NFC Championship game, and a very tough loss to, we know, the San Francisco 49ers. A lot of optimism as we head towards the future with this current Lions team, and I believe that they are in a fantastic position. So let's do a deep dive review. Let's first take a look at the 1992 Lions and answer that question, why they didn't do what they needed to do in 1992. My Lions fandom truly started back in the 92 era. I remember going to family parties. I remember my dad sitting on the couch, my mom making food, and every Sunday we were watching Lions football. I fell in love with Barry Sanders back at that age. This is the time when I truly remember first watching football and starting to love the game. I fell in love with the Detroit Lions, and I was one of those fans. My family was a part of that culture back then that thought that this was a different team. The 92 Lions were really going to take the next step and may take us to where we really ultimately want to go as a fan of football and a fan of the Detroit Lions. So I truly fell in love with this team, and I have a lot of allegiance to that era of Lions football, and I have continued so up until today, and I'm so excited about this current era of football. So let's get into it. Back in 1990, the Lions drafted a quarterback by the name of Andre Ware. I believe he was out of Houston. He was a Heisman Trophy winner and was going to be the answer at quarterback for the Detroit Lions. So if we are having a discussion about why the Lions did not take the next step and win them a Super Bowl back in this era, I think we have to start right there. The organization, really since their championship back in the 50s, was not able to find a quarterback to really get them to the next level. They thought that drafting Andre Ware may be the answer. He was obviously a more athletic quarterback than they would have ever had. Coming off winning the Heisman, you just really thought that if that trajectory continues, that he may take this organization to the next level. Again, we know that didn't happen. He only started 6 games in 5 years in his career of the NFL, and I think ultimately put them behind the 8 ball overall. And they're playing a juggle at quarterback pretty much every year up until 1994, 1995, when Scott Mitchell came into play, and we won't get into that era of Detroit Lions football. So I think you have to start right there. Ultimately, they were not able to find their true answer at quarterback. In the 91 season, they started off with Rodney Peete as their starting quarterback. He had a season-ending injury halfway through the season. In comes Eric Kramer. Eric Kramer leads them to a 12-win season, ultimately wins them a home playoff game, and becomes a Detroit legend in the process. At that time in Lions era football, they hadn't had much success, especially in the playoffs. So you win a home playoff game in the city of Detroit, and believe me, we will love you forever. So that's where they stood in the quarterback position, coming off of that 1990 draft, and we know Andre Ware didn't work out. And they're entering the 92 season again with Eric Kramer as their quarterback. But again, you have this question of, well, does Andre Ware still come into play? Does Rodney Peete come back? And again, they were still shuffling all throughout that 92 season. Injuries, of course, played a part in that as well. And they really had no consistency again till they got to 94, 95 and made the trade for Scott Mitchell. Barry Sanders, the NFL's greatest running back. I don't think you'll get much argument from that. We know the greatness that was Barry Sanders. Unfortunately, the Detroit Lions organization wasted what could have been the greatest player in NFL history. I say that because that's what happened, but we know that he provided so many great memories to Lions fans, to football fans in general, so I don't regret the time. It's just unfortunate that the organization couldn't put it all together with him as part of it to get the ultimate prize. So part of why I think they didn't do what they needed to do in 92 and beyond is they didn't do what was necessary to insulate Barry Sanders and the rest of the offense. If that is going to be your focus, and we talked about how they were offensively heavy, well, why not just pour everything into that? You need to insulate Barry Sanders. You need to build an offensive line better than what they had back then. I'm not saying they were awful in the offensive line, but I don't think they did what's necessary to continue to build on their strength. It's almost like they were just plugging pieces here and there without having an overall plan. And when you have a player like Barry Sanders at your disposal, you need to do the other things right to then ultimately take this team to where they wanted to go, and that didn't happen. So insulating Barry Sanders in the incorrect way, I think, is a huge part why they did not take the next step. Again, we talked about how they were so offensively heavy that I think bolstering the defense then took a back seat. And we know, especially back in that era of NFL football, defense winning championships certainly held true. And I don't know if there was enough focus on the defensive side of the football for the Lions during that era to, again, get them to where they wanted to go. I think another part of this is that they had some coordinator inconsistency. The defensive coordinator remained true through the 1990, 91, 92 season, but the offensive coordinator duties juggled throughout those seasons. We know the current offensive defensive coordinator situation has seemed to now be consistent over the last several years, and I think that will play a major part in why they'll take the next step currently. So as we know, the 92 Lions unfortunately did disappoint. They came off the 12-4 season in 91 and fell to a 5-11 record in 1992. Injuries played a part in that, but I think overall it was the organizational inconsistency, the lack of culture in that era of Lions football that truly was the hindrance to them taking the next step, to them getting to a Super Bowl. Yes, you had Barry Sanders. Yes, you had years of a great offense, but ultimately you didn't do the other things necessary, building a defense, insulating Barry Sanders, making sure you had the offensive line, ensuring that you had the other pieces necessary to get to where you wanted to go. Back in that era of Lions football, William Clay Ford, the Ford family, much more heavily involved in the decision-making processes. And I think, unfortunately, they put people in place and made some decisions that just really put up a brick wall to them taking the next step. That has now changed since Sheila Hamp Ford has taken over this organization. They've handed the reins over to people that I think are making better decisions, putting the right people in place to make sure that that doesn't happen in the current era of Lions football. And we're going to talk about why the Lions will soar in 2024 next. So let's start with this for the current Lions, the 2024 Detroit Lions. They haven't won anything. I can sit here and talk about them being able to take the next step, but until they truly get to that next level, they have to win an NFC Championship. They have to get to a Super Bowl and win it. This is all a hypothetical conversation. But what we're talking about today is the differences between the organization, the team back in 1992 compared to the 2024 Detroit Lions. How can this team get to the next level? Why will this team soar in 2024? I think it ultimately starts from the top down. We talked about the organizational inconsistencies. Well, now the Lions have a true culture, grit, one pride. Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, Sheila Ford, the Ford family, everyone in the organization now has the clear picture on where they want to go, how they're going to get there. They're building from the inside out. We know the strength of this team is the offensive line. To me, that's the difference. They're building from the inside out. The strength is the core, and then it filters out from there. Brad Holmes and the organization's strategy overall is to focus on building through the draft. They've proven that over the last several seasons. They've hit on multiple players these last several years that have now developed these pillar players that they will build on towards the future. Instead of throwing money at high-priced free agents that are only coming here truly for the money, coming to a losing organization because they're getting high-priced pay, now they're starting to attract players at lesser cost because they want to come here because of the culture, because they want to come here because this team knows how to win. And it starts with that draft success. You build through the draft, you cultivate your pillar players, and you pay them accordingly. Then you just fill holes. That's what they've been doing, and it's shown that trajectory of success that you want to see. I believe that they've also now finally found their quarterback. Now, I'm not saying Jared Goff is the greatest quarterback of all time. He's not Tom Brady. He's not the GOAT. But he is this team's MVP, and we've talked about that in previous videos. This organization is insulating Jared Goff the right way. Continuing to build on the offensive line. They have two power running backs that they trust and are happy with. They have a play-action game that is probably the best in the league. With Ben Johnson returning as the offensive coordinator, you have continuity developed over the last several seasons that I think will continue in 2024. You have young players, you have a strong offensive line, weapons all over the place, and we still have the 2024 draft to add to that. So I think, again, you have a lot of pillars and pieces in place that show that this team is moving in the right direction. I think they're finally now starting to focus on the defensive side of the football. Starting a few years back with the draft with Aiden Hutchinson, they've made several moves even this offseason to continue to bolster the defensive line, the defensive backfield. So they now have more of a focus on defense and what is necessary on that side of the football to, again, get them to the next level. To combine hopefully what will be at least a mediocre defense, if not better, with an elite offense. I really believe that they can now they've now put themselves in a position where they are Super Bowl contenders. People still talk so fondly of that era of Lions football. The 1991-92 Lions, that era of Lions football in general, still a lot to look back on and celebrate. The greatness of Barry Sanders will live on forever. But ultimately, the organization's dream is to win a Super Bowl. A Lions fan dream should be to win a Super Bowl. We've never experienced that before. We don't know what that looks like. That promised land doesn't exist in our reality. The 2024 Detroit Lions have a chance to change that. With a few additional right moves, I think that they can win a Super Bowl. It is so close you can almost taste it. Comparing the 1992 Detroit Lions to the 2024 Detroit Lions is so much fun because there is so much optimism. There was so back then, but I think things are a little different now. The big picture, the organization, the culture is what will make this happen. You can feel it, you can see it, and the results are now starting to show. I think the 2024 Detroit Lions have a true shot at winning the Super Bowl. Are you with me? Tell me what you think in the comments. Did you have fun following with me today? Do you remember that 92 team, the 91 team? Man, that was a lot of fun. Shoot me a comment down below. What were your memories from that year? What are you looking forward to in 2024? Can the Lions do it? Are they there? Can they really make this happen? I'd love to hear from you. Let me know. Thank you guys so much for coming along. If you liked what we did here today, make sure to slap that like button. It's the best way to help me out here. Hit the notify bell and the subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos on Johnny Gas Sports. We're getting closer and closer to the draft. We have the new jersey reveal coming up on April 18th, so definitely come and check me out for that. That should be a lot of fun. I really appreciate you guys coming along for another video. Have a fantastic day.